You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, I continue the conversation with Brandon, where we discuss the desires that never go away, highlight the adjustments required to make a relationship work, explore how past experiences influence behavior, and make a case for why your wife can't be your best friend. And so going back into, just context to your relationship, I think people, this IG world, people see all these kind of glorified versions of a relationship. They see the wedding pictures, they see the engagement pictures. Right. What were some of the challenges that you guys faced? Because I know, for example, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, like, we are close enough where I met her early on, but some of probably people in your outer circle didn't meet her early on. Right. Was that a challenge? Was that intentional? And then on top of that, what were some of the challenges that you guys faced as you guys were going through your relationship or trying to figure out, are we right for each other?
It was intentional, and the mistake that I made was I didn't communicate clearly to her why it was intentional.
Why do you say it was a mistake?
Well, because she's my partner. I need to communicate why I'm doing things. I need to tell you why I feel a certain way. It's part of the vulnerability.
So not that something happened in retrospect where you're like, oh, I got caught, or
no. But it was more me guard. I don't think she would believe this response, but it was more me guarding myself from failure. Like, okay, this is person I could potentially be with. Like, part of it was me putting my guard up. I think until you've settled into saying, okay, I'm gonna marry this person, a lot of times you kind of treat it like it's your own potential business rather than understanding that person is a part of your world, and you need to. I'm not a social media guy. I don't feel like you need to be black. I don't really care what people post on social media, etc. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be open-minded to wanting to. You have to be loud, and not necessarily loud, but you have to be proud of the interaction and connection you have with that person. So yeah, there were certainly some friends who didn't get to meet her early on, or didn't fully know how invested I was in her, or how I actually felt. But I had to learn and accept that, and I also had to understand that everybody ain't gonna be my friend, but my wife is the most important thing in my life now. And if you can't be 100% behind that, then peace. I don't really need you. Like, I don't need more friends, homie. I've been in 9 or 10 weddings already. I don't really need to be in nobody else's wedding. It's not important to me.
And so on top of that, in addition to that, I'm sure it wasn't just that was a dynamic that you guys had to overcome. What were just some of the challenges that you guys faced? What were other challenges you guys faced and how to work through to really, because it's a journey of adjustment coming together. What were some of the things that you guys had to work through to get to this point? So
I think for me, in my mind, I had to work through a lot of different things. I had to work through the general concept of when you're married, like, that's a lifetime thing and you can't go back on that. And, you can, my wife allows me to be a human. Like, I see other attractive women. I can, like, oh, she's cute or whatever. But, like, you can't really do anything about that, right? Like, you can't act on. You have to learn very early on that, look, this is the only person you're with. You can't act on that physical attraction in any way, and that's just something you have to learn. Do
you ever lose the desire like that, man? I'm wondering if I could pull that.
Oh no, you never lose the desire. No, that never goes away. But I mean, I think so that feeling never goes away. The feeling that trumps it is, man, I don't want to hurt this person, or I love this person so much
it's not worth it.
It's not worth
Got
it. It's just not worth it, right? Like, the desire never goes away, but at a certain point, like, her feelings trump it all. And I keep using Trump. I need to come up with a better word.
And so on her end, what were some of the things that you feel like she felt like was a challenge?
She had to realize that she's not Superwoman. I think my wife comes from a family where they're self-starters. They get a lot of stuff done You know, they work their tail off. They believe in working hard. Like they gonna go to work, they gonna put in 8 hours and they gonna grind. That's a grinding family. And that's who she is at the core. She's a grinder. But she's also she ain't been married. So before then, you know, she was already in her early 30s. She bought a home. She had to take care of herself. She had to do everything for herself. She had to make sure that she was right. And she couldn't wait on no man or depend on no man to help her through those things. So that mentality of being a self-starter, it took her some time to really understand and accept, like, hey, this dude is here. Let him help you. Like, let me be your backbone. You know, like, let me drive you to Arkansas this time. You don't have to do it by yourself. Right? Like, all of those different small factors are things that she had to take some time to really, really understand. And to, she'll start to learn how to live with a man, right? Like that. You know, sometimes, you know, just, you know, let me be in my room watching sports and don't bother me, right? Like, she had to learn some of those things. And those are pretty minor things. I think overall, she has a very, I think I've been lucky enough to meet a woman who's incredibly adaptable. Like, she will allow for me to be me. And she, just through her career and how she's always lived her life, she understands the general concept of let people be who they are and work within that framework to engage and to develop and to make your place in that person's life.
That makes sense to me. You guys talked about how it doesn't seem like you guys had like big issues in terms of like infidelity or, you know, just like some of the major things that may destroy a relationship.
Right.
And so as you guys were talking about it, I was like, I know everybody faces issues. Was it a question of, well, your love language is aligned or what? And
Luck.
so when you think about luck, part of it, God's looking after you,
Right.
is a component of it. But it made me start thinking about love languages because I know people talk about it. Would you say y'all's are compatible? Y'all's are very different? What are y'all's love languages?
I don't know what our love languages are. I mean, I've done the assessment at some point. I don't know. I think so. For my wife, let me try to tag her really quickly. I think she's very big on words of affirmation. She needs to hear sometimes that, hey, I love you. I'm thinking about you. You look beautiful. I think you did a great job. I really think you did the right thing. You handled that really well.
Pinpoint blank.
She needs to hear.
I feel like that's something I'm working on because like we're kind of the same. Was like we have a very high standard for like what excellent looks like, and so you could see something that is pretty good. You wouldn't call it mediocre, but it may not be your standard of good.
Right.
But you acknowledge her effort is good, even though if it were you might have done it differently or better.
Right, and not even that. I think the one thing that I had to be very intentional about was I had to pull her to the side every now and then and just say, hey, this is who I am internally. You may not see it on my face, how I feel about what you did for me, but just know that I am thankful and that I love you and that I appreciate it. Like, I genuinely appreciate it. I am thankful that it could be little stuff. It could be like, I think one time we went to the Mavs and Pelicans game, and I got to see Boogie Cousins play for the first time, and Anthony Davis, and he had 27 at halftime. I remember that.
She probably like care less.
She don't. It don't matter. I mean, she know the dude with the Browns. She know Boogie because I talk about him a lot. But she, I think I just tangibly said thank you, like for engaging and stuff. I know you don't give a damn about basketball or the NBA, but thank you for going to these games with me because I enjoy it, and I'm a nerd, and I appreciate you acting like you care. Thank you. It matters. It goes a long way. The other thing is, she likes small gifts. She don't need like a big gift. I don't need to buy her like no new Range Rover or nothing like that. But she likes small
Gucci
gifts.
bag.
She enjoys like me just sending some Tip Streets cookies to the school where she's at, or getting her a nothing but cake or something like that. Just something to munch on. That little stuff she remembers, right? And that'll go a long way. So I think every relationship is different. You have to kind of explore and get a feel for, and a lot of that is through trial and error. What makes that person tick, or what makes that
light
person what's gonna bring her, like, what behavior of yours that is minimal brings her the most joy. Like, so it's a value proposition type thing, right? Like you didn't really, it didn't really cost you much, but it did so much for her. And I think every relationship, you have to kind of think through some of those things and figure those things out and go back to them at the end of the day, right? Like, some things can be repeated, and sometimes in relationships you can't keep doing the same thing and it adds the same value every time. There's obviously an opportunity, and you should be always thinking about strategic ways to be different and to be better in a relationship, to mix it up and produce different flavors. But sometimes going back to old faithful, my wife's always gonna like a chocolate chip cookie from Tiff's Treats. She just is. She's always gonna like a red velvet cake from Nothing Bundt. She's always gonna like those things. That ain't gonna change. So don't stop doing it.
That's fair. And so when you think about what's important to you, or on the flip side of that, what makes you light up a little bit more? Is it the quality time? Is it I'm sure for you it's not affirmation. It could be. Is it the physical touch? Is it the gifts? Is it the acts of service? Like, what are the things that you feel like when she does it, I really feel like she's showing me love?
It's probably the physical touch. Like, I think, and I sometimes I tell her, I literally tell my wife this. That's weird how much I like you. Like how I like waking up and like just smelling you, or just rubbing your skin, or just or like just spooning you in the morning. I don't think she understands, but I mean, like I truly enjoy just like having my hands on her, like just feeling her presence, like just being in her personal space, even when she don't want it. Like that physical touch means so much to me. Like all the rest of the stuff, as I've told her, you can take me to Australia, that's fine. I'll be happy and I'll enjoy it and I'll love it. It'll be beautiful. The scenery will be perfect. But I'm also gonna be good with you taking me to Shreveport and let me gamble and playing some roulette, right? Like
that's fair.
I'm not that hard to please.
You like what you like.
Yeah, I'm simple.
And so I want to take a moment before we dive deeper, because I want to address some of the things that guys may think about or consider, or that we spend a lot of time thinking about, whether it's right or wrong. But before that, I just want to do a quick round robin of questions so people get more context to how you think about things, because these are topics that come up often in relationship conversations. And I just want to get a gauge of the guys that are married, what their perspective is, so people can kind of see, like, are you off or are you in line with what most people think?
Right.
And so going into that, and these are short, quick fire questions and answers. So
some of these might require me to expound a little bit.
Yeah, and after we finish, we can go.
I will answer first.
After we finish, we can go deeper into them.
Okay.
And so first one is it necessary to be your wife's best friend? Or for your wife to be your best friend?
Hell nah. We ain't here to be friends. Friendships are secondary relationships, right? Like when a woman legitimately tells a dude, hey, we should just be friends, what she is literally saying is that, you know what? We cool, but I am hoping, hell, I am praying to find somebody more important than you, because when you meet your mate and you meet that person that's like that number one, they should be number one and your friends should be secondary. And if that's not how you structure how you live your life, you're not doing it right.
From a priority standpoint, and thinking about from a love standpoint, what's the priority? Wife over children or children over wife?
Wife over children.
When you think about your wedding, financially, was it worth it?
Hell no.
If you don't mind, how much did you spend on your wedding? About approximation. Not including the ring.
We got a little discount at the end, but
total,
we would have paid about
30,000. Okay. Yeah. If you had to pick, big ring or big wedding, what would you spend your money on?
That is a great question. I lean big ring, 52.48.
slightly,
just because a ring is something that's going to last a lot longer. But the memories of a good wedding, we paid a lot for our wedding, and I was pissed off a lot of that wedding planning process. However, it was a bomb ass time. My wife did an incredible job of planning it, and it's something I'm never going to forget. I got some great advice from my brother, like sit down, take some of this in, like remember the day, don't drink too much, all of those things, right? Like I remember the details of it, and it was something I'm not going to forget.
How much ballpark did you spend on your ring?
Man.
Ballpark. You can say this range.
I spent about 12.5.
Okay. Joint accounts or separate accounts? What do y'all have now? Like,
we have separate now, but that question changes per people. Like, we don't have any reason to go through the process of
and we can go deeper into that too, but we try to keep it quick fire.
Yeah.
True or false, guys mature later than women?
That's nonsense.
So I'm asking this question twice. Your expectation and then the reality. And it pertains to the frequency of sex. All the time, weekly, monthly, or every now and then, or when I'm lucky. The expectation.
My expectation? What, like when we're living together or like as married people?
You can give me both.
Okay, like when we're not living together, look, we're not living together. You got a real hard job. We gonna do this at least twice a week.
When you're living together,
we're living together. I mean, we probably good for twice a week now. I mean, that's fine.
I feel like you're living together. I'm messing up. It changes because you see them. Like, oh, I'm tired. I get to the
person. Like, my wife likes to go to bed a little early. Right, my day just gets started. She go to bed at 10 o'clock.
Keeping the quick fire going. Yeah. What's the reality of it?
Oh, it's like twice a week.
Okay, so your expectations kind of meet.
Yeah. We're more of a morning sex couple than a go to bed at night sex couple.
We appreciate that color into the story. We getting to know you for real. Yeah. This might be a loaded question, but who runs the show? You or her?
Me. She likes it like that though. That's her dad ran the show.
That's her preference.
Runs the show. She likes that I run the show. She wouldn't have married me if I didn't.
And we could we could talk about it later because I think there's a strength in allowing and trusting in someone to run it. Right. It doesn't mean that you're weak when you trust someone to do it.
But here's another part about that. And I know I'm not supposed to be expounded. I told her very early on, like if I can't, if something happens to me, like if I get shot or something, like. And I need a woman who can take care of my children. So you better be able to run the show. And I know that she can run the show, but she allows for me to run the show. And so it works for us. But I know that she has it in her.
No, I feel you. And now you're bringing me off. But I've been a mentality. Like I want someone that when they think about parenting, they have a single parent mentality. Like I'm going to do whatever it takes, regardless of what this other person does or whatever contribution I get from my partner. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure they're good, regardless of that. Right. If I get a whole bunch of help, perfect. But if I don't, I'm still killing it.
We also leave out the part. Running the show means that you're willing to make the most sacrifices. That's ultimately what it comes down to. A lot of times people talk about running the show and they think about it in context of being in charge and having power. But at the end of the day, when you run the show, what it really means is that you are willing to make the most and ultimate sacrifices for that other person. That's what running the show should mean. And that's what I would do for this family.
And what's more important to you, to be respected or to be loved?
Respected. Loved. If forced to answer, I'm going to say love, but I think there are different forms of love, right? Like there is how I love my wife versus how I love my little brother, right? Like I need my little brother. I need, some of it is about like respect, but for my wife, the love, like those two things have to be interchanged. She don't respect me. Like what we married for? We got a marriage built on something on a straw house, like, and that's not okay.
That's fair. And so we completely failed on the quick fire. Hopefully over time, we'll get better at that. But I just want to give you a sampling of how people think and how perspective changes or might have shifted as they've gotten married. Or
I used to do quick fire with the young ladies. I used to be like breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Oh yeah, I remember you used to do the B&G question. If you were a pancake, which pancake would you be? The top, middle, or bottom?
Right. You learn a lot about a woman when you ask her French toast, pancakes, or waffles. Like you just learn a lot.
Or sugar grits and salt and savory grits.
Right. I don't do grits like that. My people from the country, I stay away from those grits.
Now you learn a lot from people that take their question too seriously. Absolutely. You be like, time to go. Yeah. Check, please.
It's a real question.
All right, cool. And so moving on, I just want to know about. I think there's like sometimes insecurities that we have as men, or that plus I think there's a level of like reality that women have to hit. There's like, yo, you may not have some of these things that you think you've been wanting when you was 19, 21, 23, but you're still probably just as happy or more happy than you thought you would have been. Right. And so, do you think that you're everything your wife wanted?
That's an impossible standard.
But you have an opinion.
It's an impossible standard to me. No, I can't possibly be everything she ever wanted because humans set expectations that are often unreasonable. I think when she looks back on her life and she thinks about, okay, this kind of dude, I think I resemble enough of what her view of a quality male is. I resemble damn near all of those connection points in her brain.
That's fair,
right? So I think I resemble that, and for her, I had to resemble that to her mother as well. Like, and I think her mother has, identified that I check enough those boxes. So I think from that, adequate's not the right word because you shouldn't be married on adequate, but I think we're both in a good place as it relates to that.
All right, so right now I want to get into. We talked about it a bit in terms of, were you 100% sure when you proposed? But I think everybody has like concerns in the back of their mind. Nothing's 100% sure. There's a risk involved. As a man, what were some of the concerns you had in the back of your mind while you guys were dating, and what were they leading up to the proposal, and did they change, if any?
So I think early on, I established with my future, at that point when we were dating, my future wife, that she would be the one. I think the whole general concept around a proposal is something we have to dig deeper on, right? Like, so you think about a proposal, and as you're dating someone, things are going well, so you get to a point where, hey, I need to propose, we need to get married. So the whole concept of a proposal is basically things are going really well, so let's change them. Let's change the course of how all of this is going. Like, that's what a proposal is. That doesn't really align with how people think. Things are going really well, so let's change it. Different. Let's do something different. Like, that doesn't really make any sense when you logically bear it out. So that was something that's tricky about a general concept of proposing to my future wife. I also think that as a man, oftentimes, and this may be, I don't think this is necessarily an intellectual thing, but as people who are very strategic and like to plan their life out.
You're a thinker more than a feeler. Sometimes.
Right. Like that proposal is an emotional thing for that woman, but for that man, it's a strategic thing. This is how I want it to work. This is how I want her to receive it. This is what I need to do to get there. Like, I got to find a place. I got to pick a time. I got to figure out the right words. I got to do how. Like, it can't just be like I'm just gonna show up and give this woman a ring. Like, but for her, it's just the receiving of, okay, this man is giving himself to me for the rest of his life, or he's saying let's take that next step to get there. So that emotional piece versus that strategic piece is very different in terms of how we think about a proposal.
Would you say the decision to propose was a similar process, or was it straight feeling?
It was straight feeling. It was time, man. I knew that it was time.
I tapped out of the game.
I knew, and she knew, and her mom knew that, and her family knew that it was time. And I was ready, right? Like, I think that going back to that, we've talked about this a few times. That general concept of love is a feeling that you can't control. I knew that I couldn't have a life without her. So I also, with that being said, it was like, okay, you got to do what it takes to make this woman happy, and you just dating this woman ain't making her happy no more. So you got to marry her. You just got to do it. So I relate to like those episodes of Martin where he wasn't ready, and then he had to kind of work through the process, and the old head had to show up to Martin and to tell him like what he said. I think the words were, "Old fools used to be young fools. Remember that." And Martin took the lesson. He was like, "You a young fool right now, but correct it, like, because 40 years down the line, you're not going to be able to recover from that mistake or that error or that lack of judgment to just give that woman what she wants, because it's really not that much, man. At the end of the day, like, it's a financial burden, but like it's so worth it. Like it's like I like, you know, I like that. I enjoy being married to her. I enjoy having her around all the time. I enjoy making decisions like with multiple people. Like, I enjoy not having to do all of those things. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's certainly worth it.
And so you're in this situation. You're married, and I tend to think that, like, especially for guys, but in general, sometimes before you get into that next stage, you already kind of have to demonstrate those abilities. So, like, while you're dating, and you're trying to fill this person out to see if they're meet your expectations or your needs to be in an exclusive relationship, you're already going to do things to demonstrate that you want that, even though you may have not had the conversation.
Right.
And I would imagine once you're exclusive, there are going to be certain things that you're going to start doing that may not be what someone does as a wife, but you want to start showing that. It doesn't happen. You don't get married, then all of a sudden you start doing these things. And so when we think about roles and responsibilities, how would you guys say that? How would you say you guys have outlined those, and what kind of indications did you get while you guys were in a relationship to show like, okay, this person knows what I expect, or we have a good idea of what that looks like?
I guess part of the reason why I was very in tune with being with her long term was that we didn't have to outline those things. Is that I knew that her mentality was, we are going to do for each other. The key is do for the other, right? Like, so if the other needs you to hold down cooking tonight, I need you to handle that. And just that general principle is what drove our relationship. So it was very natural for us in terms of getting married, and so I think things changed. It's the changes in how like the duties is more aligned with moving in with that person rather than getting married, right? So we moved in a couple months before we got married.
Married or engaged?
A couple months before we got married.
Okay.
We were engaged before. So part of my reason and timing of my proposal was I would not be comfortable. I would not have been comfortable moving in with her not having proposed, right? She didn't know that, but I knew that, right? So I think because we both just had the open mindset, okay, we're going to feel this out. We're going to kind of see what works for both of us. And it worked naturally, right? Like she's a laundry person. She is the cleaner. She does all the sweeping and the vacuuming. I don't like a dirty kitchen, so I'm always the clean the kitchen guy. I'm more of the cook in this relationship, right? But I ain't washed clothes, and I've been living with her for almost a year now. I've washed clothes in a year. Like, I don't know if I remember how. I do remember how, but that's something that naturally flowed in terms of roles and responsibilities. And I think the key is ultimately you just have to be open to doing all of the different tasks. You have to understand that there's going to be a time my wife is not going to be able to wash the clothes, and I'm going to need to do it. And if you're willing and you're just open-minded about, these are just activities and tasks. They really don't take that long. They don't really impede on how you're living your life or how you're doing things. And at the end of the day, they just make your partner's day that much better just executing upon these activities. If you think about it from that perspective, I think it becomes really easy to align those roles and responsibilities.
Gotcha. And so what would you say, like, let's say your wife didn't have that natural affinity? Like, would that be a deal breaker for you, or how would you go about making sure that you guys have alignment on that?
I don't know if it'd be a deal breaker. I'm guessing it probably would. I guess at the forefront, I try to identify those things early on in a relationship. Try to identify, okay, is this type of woman that resembles these traits, right? And you may view it through the concept of family members or whatever. I think the first question you always have to ask is why that person is that way. You have to understand that people are not. They're products of their environment. Especially when you add kids to the environment. You just got to do what you got to do, and it's about getting the job done, and it's about rather than worrying about bruised egos and truly aligning roles and responsibilities.
No, that makes total sense. And for me, I think about like what kind of, I don't use the word baggage, but what kind of expectations that we have. And you talked about it, and the way we grow up influences that, and how do we adjust? And how important it is to adjust. Like, because some people say, well, now I'm settling. And so at what point are you settling? At what point are you just adjusting to the person
you're going to settle on some things. I mean, that's the whole point. Like, that's the whole point of a relationship, is that you're not going, it's impossible to get everything you want. Like, I mean,
it's like a relationship is like an ultimate compromise where no one wins really.
Right,
but you get what you need, but no one wins. Like, you don't get everything.
You don't get everything, but you do win, right? Like, that person is the win, right? Like, that the interaction with that person should trump the activities or tangible activities that they're not meeting, right? Whether or not they can cook or they don't clean adequately, all that good stuff. And I think you mentioned a key word, expectation. I think a lot of times we don't recognize it. It's our expectations that are stupid. That's what the problem is that we have expectations that are dumb.
Are they dumb or they just...
They're not guided in anything. They're not rooted in anything.
True. True. I give you that because... Right. And someone told me this in the sense of... we have... If you think about behavior and all that, we have experiences, we have how we think and feel, we have action, and we have outcomes.
Right.
And a lot of times, and what he was trying to tell me was like, when you get undesired outcome, your first reaction is to change the action. And a lot of times that action is influenced by how you think and feel, which is also influenced by experiences.
Right.
And those experiences are like tradition, stories, so maybe certain moments that like you replay in your head over and over again. Let's say your dad never said I love you, or I'll never be proud of you. You replay that in your head over and over again, and that impacts how you think and feel about certain things and impacts your action.
Right.
And he told me this story about how for Thanksgiving they used to cut the ham in half when they would cook it. And the daughter was learning that. She's like, Mom, why do we cut the ham? Because Mom's like, you know what? That's a good question. That's how your grandmother did it. She's like, oh, we should ask her.
Right.
And so they asked the grandmother, and the grandmother's like, hey, I know we've been doing this for years now. Why do we cut the ham in half when we cook it? And she was like, you know what? I don't even really know. Let's ask your great-grandmother. Right. Happened to be alive. And so they asked the great-grandmother. She's like, well, you know what? During that time, the oven wasn't big enough for the ham. So we had to cut it in half in order to have it to fit. But generation after generation has been acting as if that is law.
Right.
And have that expectation like, yo, if you're not cutting the ham, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And yeah, it's ham and you can cook ham multiple ways, but you can do relationship multiple ways.
Right.
And so you saying that just made me think about that story someone's told me, and how sometimes the traditions and expectations that we have how you're supposed to do something is guided by some things that the situation might have only allowed for it at that time, but there's more than one way to do it now.
You make me think, and this doesn't have really anything to do with relationships, but you make me think about the general concept of why. Right, like that we should always ask why. Like, why is this way? Like, why do we do it this way? Why do we behave, or why do we act in accordance with what's going on? And I think it really ties into just a lot of what's going on in the world. Like a lot of what we do in the world is directly connected to this is what we did in the past. Or this is how it used to be. And the question is like, why was it done that way in the past? Right? Like, why did it happen that way? So that general alignment and general thought process is very important. I think it's also important in a relationship, right? Like to continue to ask, like, why are we doing this? Right? Like if our parents manage money this way, why are we managing money this way? Right? Like the whole point is my parents gave me tools to be better at managing money than them. Right?
True.
So like let's take those tools, right? Like so let's take those tools and build on them and share with them. And the whole point is, as a married couple, we're ultimately looking to be parents. However, like we should be thinking the same thing for our kids. We should be thinking, okay, how are we? What steps and things are we going to do to make sure that our kids are better than us? So I think those are great points, and they all align.
I mean, spoken like a true married man. No, I mean, I think these are all important things that like I need to hear and other people need to hear. I want to get, we don't have that much time left. I want to get into just like, I think there's a level of maturation that happens. Not that like you're mature, but maturation in a relationship that happens. And I want to just touch on that and what that looks like or has looked like in your relationship. And so I start off by saying, or wanting to know, like, how would you say your wife has matured and grown in your relationship?
Oh, that is a really, really good question. How has she grown and matured in our relationship? I think the biggest thing for her is realizing that she is not alone, that she has a partner, and that she does not have to make singular decisions by herself, that she does not have to tackle all of the life's burdens on herself. I think she's had a very hard time just accepting like that, hey, this person is here to help me hold this thing down, right? Like I own a home and I don't always want to deal with the maintenance of renting that house out in Arkansas or whatever. But I got a husband who can help me with that now. Like, he can help me with those little things. He can talk to the management company. He's a little more of a jerk than I am, so he can be an asshole about certain things that I'm not really comfortable being an asshole about. I think it's just understanding that, like, one of the key concepts of marriage is filling in the gaps that the other person doesn't want to necessarily deal with, right? So she has some things that she just didn't want to deal with, and I'm there to fill in those gaps. There's some stuff I don't want to deal with. There's some emotional, more around the edges types things that I don't want to deal with that she's very willing and open to dealing with for me. And so I think just having each other's back and just being each other's support system has allowed for us to grow. And I think it's essential. It's an essential piece of a healthy marriage.
And within that, so you said something that made me think about it. And I know you well enough to know, like, I couldn't see a situation where you face an obstacle or a challenge and you don't figure out a way to, like, get through it, overcome it. And so knowing that, I'm like, well, where, in what capacities do you need help? And so I'm curious to know, when you say, like, she helps you in certain ways, are you thinking about through the lens of purely a wife, or are you thinking about as a mother too, where you may have some deficiencies that raising children benefit from?
Like, you nailed it, because it's a lot connected to the type of mother that I'm gonna need for my children, right? Like, I tend to have a hard time with empathy, and I think my wife's ability to connect with young people and to just be loving on kids and to just give love to people who may not always deserve it, or may not always be receptive of it, is something that I needed to marry a woman like that, because that's the kind of balance I need.
I raise a whole bunch of jerks.
I'm a very black and white person, but one of the things I'm gonna have to work on as a father, sometimes my kids are gonna need me to just love on them. They're not going to need me to be an asshole. They're not going to need me to tell them, hey, the world's tough out there. They're going to need me to just be loving. Just pick them up and just hold them and tell them, hey, I love you. And she's going to coach me through that. She doesn't realize it. She's going to coach me through a lot of that, because that's who she is as a person. She has the ability to connect with people and to make people feel good in her presence. And I need that in my life. And I don't think she truly understands her value in that particular arena or spectrum, but I can tell her that I know it right now. And I've told her, like, hey, sometimes I need you to be more of a hard ass, and for me, sometimes I need to understand the concept of empathy and just really loving on people in a way that may not be in alignment with what my general concept of being rational is.
And so, in that context, knowing that, like, okay, wife over children, but then there's all these aspects of it that you feel like, you know, whether directly or indirectly, your wife's going to add probably more value than you bring to the table currently when it comes to child raising. I like to put things in numbers. How important is that when you say, like, okay, when you think about things through the lens of this person as a wife, this person as a mother, like, where do you put more weight to?
So when you think about the general concept of wifing, using a probably not proper term, wifing versus mothering, part of the concept of being an adequate and good wife is the understanding of the different concepts of mothering that the two parties have established as what they want to have happen, right? Like, so you can be a good mother without being a good wife. You can't really be a good wife without being a good mother. Like, those are two, the chain of connected.
Why do you say that? I don't get it.
Well, what I ultimately mean is, if you're in a marriage where the whole, there's intention and there's a probability and a want to have kids, then part of those wifely duties is exploring and being open about the concept of being a mother and being a homemaker and leading a family.
So you're saying inherently you can't be a good wife, be a good mother if you're not thinking about being a good wife.
Right.
But you could be a good mother without
Right. You could not have that particular situation, right?
I see.
You have to. I mean, but every relationship is a different conversation. There are going to be relationships where people are going to get married and kids are not something that's not what they're going to do, and that's okay,
or what they want, yeah,
or what they want. And in that case, then the motherhood gene or aspect is less important. But
for
ideally,
you're
having those conversations up front, right?
For you, where did it lie? If you thought about it,
it was everything. The motherhood, it was everything.
The mothering attributes that she had weighed more heavily in some respects than how she would be.
If we are lucky enough to bring kids into this world, and we certainly are going to try for it. We're praying for it. Then inadequate mothering, and mothering is not a word, but inadequate mothering. If I saw those traits in my wife, she would not be my wife.
So you would have more hope or optimism for a woman that, let's say, you had more questions about as it related to her as a wife, but probably had no doubt as her as a mother. You have less questions about moving forward with that type of person than the opposite. If you saw more questions as a mother, less questions as a wife.
I feel like the traits to be a good wife are something I can document in a project plan. I can build out a template for how to be a good wife. I can't really build out that template for how to be a good mother. Being a good mother requires so much nuance. It requires so much understanding of your kids, obviously. It requires patience that most humans are not wired with. So you can't really connect to those different things that requires to be a mother. Requires to be a wife is to learn how to not be selfish, right? Like learn how to do some shit for your partner to make them happy, right? Like if your partner needs a lot of sex, then have a lot of sex with him. That's something you can tangibly choose to do. If your partner likes for you to cook, learn how to cook. Those are things you can learn how to do. If your partner likes for you to if y'all like to go on vacation, then save your money accordingly so that you can go on vacation. Those are all very tangible, reasonable things to do. The whole mothering piece is just, it comes with so much additional nuance.
That's fair. And so you might have been speaking to it a bit, but I just want to be explicit about the question in terms of what have you learned from your wife and how does she make you better?
So what I've really learned from her is that people are not monoliths, right? We are not just what you see on the outside, that people are so much deeper and that people are so much more, I might even call them complex, but that people require so much more special attention and love. And she's helped me to understand and learn how to not only love others, but she's really taught me how to love her, right? Like that she needs me sometimes it's not about a solution. Sometimes it's about us just understanding each other and just being together and just being a support system. We don't have to say words. We don't have to necessarily do anything. We just need to be there for each other and just be each other's rock and just to hold each other in that special way.
And so we talked about how much your wife has matured and grown in your relationship. We talked about what you've learned from her and how she makes you better. Can you explain to us in some context how she supports you as a husband, as an individual?
I guess the most important thing and the thing we touched on earlier was that she allows for me to be a leader. She allows for me to lead this family. She allows for me to make decisions on behalf of this family. She's accepting and open-minded to that. She's also an incredible support system, right? Like she is my queen. Like ultimately, at the end of the day, this family, I'm not making decisions without her input. Like her input means everything to me. How she views things means everything to me. So I'm always going to be going to her with that. But just the open-mindedness, the acceptance of, okay, we have these roles. He's the man of this household. I'm going to allow for him to lead as the man of this household. It's something that's simple, but an overrated piece of how couples often interact.
And I want to dive deeper into that, but you said something that
and let me add this. It's also the power of like the black woman, right? Like black women are basically the most, educated and sharpest demographic of people really in this country, right? Like, so
and
a lot
underrated.
right, no, it's underrated. Like, so a lot of times black women, just as the demographic of really, really smart people who are self-starters, who get stuff done, who are innovators, who are culture setters, all those different things that black women really are leading on. It's not easy for a black woman to take a step back to the average black male who, on average, ain't plenty of average ones, who ain't where she is in her life. So I think my wife has always been a self-starter. She's always been a go-getter.
Would you say you're above or below that with that average black man?
I mean,
I know the answer.
I'm above, but I mean, I don't want to brag about her.
No, and so you said something that I want to go.
But let me expound on that. I'm not dumb, and I'm not dumb by choice. My parents worked hard. And I come from a great background. I don't give myself credit for a bunch of nonsense like graduating from college. Like, graduating from college is an impressive thing, and in different families it means different things. You're the first kid to graduate. That's beautiful and that's important. My parents set the background that college was an expectation. It wasn't something that I was going to be like icing on the cake. So it was. I came from a background where I had all the tools to succeed, and I'm very thankful. And I don't ever forget that I had people that always pushed me and forced me to be better than I even thought I could be.
But you said something, and I lost part of it. But one of the things I wanted to dive into when you talked about, your role as the leader of the household, how important is that to you, and what does that actually mean? Because sometimes I think about it like you've provided some color into it in terms of like, when the leader of the household, that means you have to do more work, make more sacrifices and things like that. But sometimes I feel like women don't understand that like there's a lot of things that go into it. That like when you're the leader of the household and you're blocking and tackling all those things, it creates capacity for you not to worry about certain things. And there's a sense of trust and freedom you have from knowing like these things that are distractions from whatever it is I want to accomplish in life, my guy has it taken care of.
Right.
And so when you think about your role as the leader of the household, how important is it to you? Some people don't care about it. Some guys don't care about it. But also, like, what does that mean to you?
It means everything to me because in a lot of ways it's about the simplification of life. I think one of the most important things that we often forget is the ability to say no. All right, like there are certain things in this family that I'm going to say no to, that I'm going to keep off my wife's plate, that I think are incredibly useful and important.
So, if you didn't have that, if you didn't have a woman in your life that was going to allow you to lead in that capacity and let you take, reign over the household and the direction of your family, how would that be for you? Would it be something you could put up with? Would it be something that you would be say this is not going to work? What would that look like?
So I don't think you can adequately assess like what you couldn't put up with. I think inherently, like early on and when you're interacting with someone that you could think potentially be your future mate, I think you do an assessment or you take an inventory of these different factors, right? Like, how is this woman going to be as a mother? How is she going to be as a wife? How is she going to allow me to lead? Like the other tangible things, like, is this woman a good cook? Like, is she go like take care of the household? All those different factors like are things you take inventory of, and you have to like basically say, okay, what am I willing to put up with? What am I willing to deal with? And what am I not willing to deal with?
And interrupting you is when you came into it, or give me your background, was being the leader of the household something that you said is a role that I'm going to take, that I want to take.
It's the only thing. So for me, it was the only thing I knew, right? Like it was.
And so knowing that,
right.
There's women out there that are like, right. Oh, I make X number of dollars. I pay this. I ain't going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to make these decisions. And so if you would have come across that, let's say everything else is okay, adequate enough. Right. How do you navigate that? Like, that's the big issue. How do you then navigate it, saying that you're coming in from a mindset of, well, I don't even know how to be a head of the household, but I'm combating you because you're trying to be the head of the household, and there only can be one driver of the ship.
Right. Well, step one is to ask why, right? Like, it's to understand the why, right? Like, so if you meet a woman who may need to have that I don't want to call it dictatorial traits, but she has those
Dictatorial. That's funny.
I don't want to go there, but she has those leadership traits that are inherent to her personality. You have to ask the question as to why she is that way, and you have to think about her background. I think the thing about me and my wife was, I got the impression that she was going to allow me to lead. Then I met her father, and I saw how her father and mother interacted, and I listened to how she talked about how her father and mother interacted. And I knew, okay, I know the background of why she is the way. I know this is who she is.
But in the situation of, no one's perfect, everyone's nuanced. In the situation where you get why she is the way she is and feels like she has to take the lead and be the leader, what then? Because you still want what you want. For whatever legitimate reasons, she has to feel the way she feels. She feels like she has to be the leader or wants to. What then? How do you combat that? Because at the end of the day, you're butting heads. There's not alignment on that.
The only way to potentially solve that problem is to understand the why, right? Like, you have to figure out first why she is that way. Is it because of how she was raised? Is it because of
Let's say you got to figure it out. You figured it out.
So once you figure it out, then you have to ask yourself this question. You have to identify how you feel about that person. So we've talked a number of times about the uncontrollable feeling of love. Love is not really a feeling you control. You love somebody because you love them. They might, women have gone through domestic violence situations where they still love to do. They know it's not in their best interest. No, and women will identify, hey, I know it's in my best interest to leave, but that don't mean I don't love this dude. Like, because it's not something I can't control.
It's like having an adult breakup. You're like, right. I love this person, but this ain't working.
But I gotta move on. So I think you have to say, okay, at what stage in this process of love am I? And if you're at that, you're at a stage in the process of love where I think I could, or I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, or I inherently care about how this person feels beyond what is rational and normal. Like, my love for this person is irrational. It doesn't make any sense. I can't explain it. Then you tap into those different things that inherently make the person the way that they are. And you work on potentially trying to correct them or alleviate them. Right. So it may be that a woman has never seen a strong male presence in her life who can be the leader or the head of her household.
To trust.
Or trust, right? So something a man can do is to identify some vulnerability in myself. Make yourself vulnerable to her to let her know that she can trust you, because it's not just you investing in me, it's me investing in you. It's a two-way street. This is not, I'm here for you, but it's also, I need you to be here for me. And that vulnerability goes a long way.
I got it. But you said something like when the love is there, but in the beginning, you may see, like, this person may have great qualities. You may see a lot of things that you like in this person. You're not at that point where I might be in love, but you recognize this is an issue of conflict.
I don't buy that just because I think
like, people. I guess at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out, like, and you may not know the answer, but I'm trying to get you to answer, like, how do you know whether it's worth working on, or it's like, yo, we're butting heads at this?
I believe early on you know if somebody's worth it. I don't buy the concept of you're working through things, so you got to kind of figure stuff out with somebody. I feel like and I feel like that's not a feeling that So let me. I guess I'll say this: if you don't have that feeling, then there should be some skepticism. Right? Like, you'll have the feeling, and if you have it, you'll know that you have it, and you'll be willing to work through it. If you don't have the feeling like this person could potentially be the one, there should be some natural skepticism, and you should be like, okay, what am I doing? I think it's important to rationalize and understand those feelings, and to be open-minded and accept them and say, okay, you know what I'm going to do, build on this. And that goes both ways. There are going to be cases where you're like, I just don't have that fire in my heart about this person. I don't know why. They're good. They may have a good job. They come from a good family. They might be a solid human being. They seem like they got a good head on their shoulders. Don't have that buzz or that feeling. And sometimes you got to just be like, you know what? Because I don't have that buzz or that feeling, it's time for me to walk away.
I mean, couldn't said it any better. thinking about that, thinking about like relationships are work. They require a lot, but they're also fun. And there's a lot of, I think the unique aspect of a relationship where that romance component happens that you're not allowed or shouldn't be sharing with other people. And so how do you, especially now that you're married or as you guys are working to that point, how do you balance what I call like the business of the relationship, the things that need to happen? You know, no one wants to do it, but it has to happen, whether it's dishes, finances, whatever, with the like romance and fun of the relationship. You know, what do you think is more important and which one requires more intentionality?
They should they should be 50-50 propositions. The day-to-day interactions have to be connected to what each person in the relationship does for a living, how on a day-to-day basis they're interacting, right? So the other part of it is the more let's have fun, let's do social stuff, is just understanding each other's financial capacities, right? And working through that. But that conversation should be had fairly early on in the conversation because in a relationship, because it's important, right? Like it's uncomfortable, but it's ultimately very important. Like, where are we at financially? Am I willing to take on your financial burden? Are you willing to take on my financial burden? And if you're not, then we're probably not going to work.
Fair enough. I know I've held you for a long time, and your wife's probably like, where is he at? And so I just want to wrap this up with just a few kind of closing remarks or questions as you think about your entire experience from back when you were in college, what you've learned through dating, what you've learned in this relationship that's now developed into a marriage. Why did you get married?
Because I could not imagine my life without this person.
Just in general, like just the premise before you even knew this person was like, what was your?
Because it was what you're supposed to do.
So you did it more from an obligation, not from a.
Well, no, the general concept of like, hey, I'm gonna get married and have kids is just what you're supposed to do. That's what I knew. That's what a man's supposed to do.
The example that you saw.
That's the example that I saw. But when upon meeting the actual person that I was going to marry, it was like, okay, I don't want a life without her. Like I don't want to think about like what I'd rather. I don't want to think about what could have been. I know what can be and what will be, and I need to react to that rather than taking a chance there's something better out there for me. It's also okay to be scared, right? Like I think men have a hard time with fear. It's okay to be scared and to not know that, you know, to understand that.
Bro, I'm scared of everything. I'm scared of wasting time. I'm scared of losing money.
But
I'm scared of failing.
But a lot of that is where our bar is set in terms of standards. And sometimes we have to understand that these are not I think for men, and I think for especially guys like us, the absence of control is a huge thing. The idea that I can't control how I feel about this person. I can't always control about. I can't guarantee she's gonna come home happy today. I can't always make everything peachy for her. Like all these things that I don't control. I can control her emotions. All of these different things, in this absence of control in a relationship, is fearful to us because we like having control. We like having order in our day. We like setting an agenda. We like saying, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. This is how we're going to make this day work. This is the financial plan we're going to do. This is how we're going to stick to it. This is the next time we're going to meet and talk about it. And human beings just don't work like that. Especially women. They don't work like that. And so you have to accept that that's the case. And once you acknowledge that and just realize, okay, I'm not going to be in control of all of this. But what I can guarantee and what I can be in control of is that I'm always going to be present and available to work with her and to coach her through and to allow myself to be coached through, then I think you have an opportunity to succeed.
Gotcha. And so we talked about the best friend question. Do you feel like over time there'll be a point where you consider your wife to be a best friend?
Not at all.
Why are you saying that?
Because we're not friends. We're not. Friendship is
some people, you know,
friendship's a secondary relationship.
It is a secondary relationship, but and maybe people are lying, but you'd be like, oh, this person's my best friend.
No, bump that, man. Like me and you are friends, but you're not my wife. Like she's more important than you.
And there won't be a time when y'all both 68 and like kids are out of the house. Like by that, all the trials, tribulations. She won't be your best friend.
I'll say this:
at that point, that person knows you better than
nobody's come up with the right word for it. It's just not friend. Friend is not a word. Friend is a second. Friend. Best friend best friends are secondary. Like true. Like you have to.
The day you start putting me above your wife, I'm right.
That means that something's not right. Like me and my wife have our connection is different than a friendship. And that'll always be where I stand with that. It's just a different connection. It's one that's higher than a friendship, and it should be. And if not, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah, you won't find me arguing with you on that. The last couple questions is just in terms of advice, and I think it's easy just to give random advice to people about this. But what advice would you give your son about dating if you had one? Let's say like he's 17. Or he's 21, he's dating. Like, what are like the 2 or 3 things you say, son?
You can't make a shot without taking it, and wrap it up.
He's like, bro, shoot your shot, and I don't want no other children. All right, on the flip side of that, what advice would you give your daughter? She's 16, she's 21, she's 23, about dating or on dating?
Be open-minded. Don't view all men through the perspective of your friends. View them more through the male role models that you have established in your life. And it's important as parents to make sure that your daughter has an establishment or a mindset of what quality role models are. And be okay with messing up. You're not perfect. I think that's more a product of me knowing who my daughter's mother is going to be. Know that sometimes that you're going to make mistakes, you're going to make dumb. And you know what? Like, your father has already accepted that you're going to do dumb shit. Like, that's just what it is. Like, you know why you're going to do dumb shit? Because everybody's daughter does dumb shit. That's just how the world works. But don't be too hard on yourself. Don't pressure yourself. And you know, there's always this back part of your brain that's telling you what to do. And we often ignore it. We often ignore that piece of our mind where we know what's right to do, and a lot of that is just college stupidity. A lot of that is growing up. But always remember that that's there. Think back about it and review it from time to time, and assess where the decisions you've made and grow from those decisions.
And with that, I want to say thank you for your time. We went way past time today, but you were dropping so many great nuggets that I had to let it flow. You know, when you're in the vibe, sometimes you just got to run with it and see what happens. And that's what we did today. But I appreciate you for coming and sharing your time with us. I also want to thank the listeners out there, especially those that subscribe to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast channel. We couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed this, found it beneficial. I really want to make sure that I get to engage with everyone that's listening. So if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, you want to go deeper on certain topics that we talked about or things that are going on in your life, please send me a note at ThinkLoveWife on Instagram. I'll bring Brandon back and we'll get to discuss all of it and try to give you as much perspective and guidance and insight as we can based off of the collective experience that we have. Thanks again, and I hope the conversation keeps going.